Welcome back, listeners. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined tonight by my two co-hosts,
Cara Hayes,
Robert Bradford,
and we are continuing our summer blockbuster discussion tonight with the movie Supergirl, which all three of us had very different, sometimes conflicting opinions on. Just overall thoughts before we dive into the discussion. I really liked this movie, but I feel like I might be in the minority on that one. Cara, you were...
No, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
I can't. But then again, the same thing was true of the Superman, because I had not watched it and you had told me how much you loved it. So I was like, all right, well, I'll give it a chance. And again, really enjoyed that movie way more than I expected to.
Yeah, it's fun that I think we're going to be at the place where we each have, like, Cara, it sounds like you're fine with the movie. David, you really liked it, and I'm going to be kind of the wet blanket over here, where everything I say about the movie is going to be preceded with a, I
love it.
That was me with Disclosure Day last week. Katie was listening to it at one point when I got home, and she was like, wow, you really hated this movie. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry that came through so harshly.
I didn't hate it. See, so for me, it was me last week.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can't agree all the time. We mostly agreed on Lost, I think, so we had that going for us.
Yeah, I was always waiting for an episode that, like, two of us were like, oh, this is great, this is best of the show, and then one person was like, I don't know, I don't get it. But I don't think we ever really had that happen on the big ones.
Thank God.
We all hated Stranger in a Strange Land, and we all loved The Constant,
And we all loved Nikki and Paolo, so we got that going for us.
Wrong.
That was probably the closest. I liked Nikki and Paolo's Focus episode, and I don't think either of you two did.
That's right. I forgot how much you enjoyed that episode. I didn't realize, Robert, exactly like how much our opinions differed on this until I was reading your notes this afternoon, and I was like, oh, shit. This is going to be a very different discussion. I'm over here all pop and bubbly, like, hey, and here's what I liked. And then I read Robert's next note, and I'm like, fuck.
And I haven't read any of the notes, so yay!
Well, before we even talk about the movie itself, I've seen a lot of movies this summer, and still not as many as I'd like to. And preceding all of them for the last 2 months have been the trailers that are always kicked off with the minions, like one particular minion struggling to open up a movie on his computer. And after 2 months of this, the only thing I could think when we watched Supergirl was I want to take all of the minions and put them into an industrial-sized meat grinder. And every time I say something like that, Katie's like, David, that's a children's movie. It's not for you. And I get that.
Doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be annoying to adults.
No, I still want to pick one up and then punt it into a windmill.
There are so many things I'm looking at now and being like, I hope my son does not get into this. Like, I hope he is not a huge
keep
Minions
him away
fan.
from it.
Yeah.
That's all. Just be like, no, son, we don't do this.
One of his friends is going to show him, like, the Despicable Me franchise, and it's going to be like they gave him COVID. Like, he's going to come home, and I'm just going to be like, oh, no, it's in my house now.
Well, that brings us to the second trailer that we watched that evening.
I actually turned to David and came out and was like, oh, you have no idea where this is going.
Dude, it came across my Instagram, and I was like, I just was like, oh, this is weird. What?
Because, yeah, it opens with, like, oh, it looks like kind of a thoughtful, maybe arty movie, like guy on a coast flashing back to his dad, Josh Brolin, talking about diving, and he goes swimming. And then he gets eaten by a whale. He gets swallowed by a sperm whale, and the title is Whale Fall, because why not?
Because fuck you, that's
whales,
why.
they don't fall. They're in water. It's like, you can't do that in water.
No, when they die, they float.
I thought this was going to be a setup to some sort of, like, horrors from the deep type horror movie. Like, oh, what is this Cthulhu-esque creature, this horror from down below, this giant octopus or whatever. Nope, whale.
And a giant squid that, by God, is taking this piddly human with him.
So I was so confused by the mere premise of this movie that I went to read about it on Reddit. And apparently, like, the majority of the movie is him stuck in the whale's stomach, and the rest of it is flashbacks to before, like using his skills to escape. And somebody in the comments on Reddit called it Project Whale Mary.
Yeah, no, movie I don't want to see, that one.
This just made me think that if we ever needed to like get away from TV shows, we could retool this as just judging movie trailers.
Oh,
I think that would be a fun side project for the three of us.
Do like mini-sodes between.
yeah.
Like, what's happening nowadays?
Yep. All right. Well, now that we're done talking about those things, let's talk about the actual movie we're here to see, Craig Gillespie's Supergirl.
So I want to preface everything I'm going to say on this episode by emphasizing I really wanted to like this movie. I loved the James Gunn Superman last summer. Enjoyed Millie Alcock's small role as Supergirl at the very end and was like, okay, yeah, like this doesn't have to be like as big of a swing. I like that it's going to be kind of a small side road trip adventure. And I think a secret formula for a lot of really great comic book movies has been like, let's take like a genre classic and then just put superheroes in it. So like Logan is pretty much Shane and Unforgiven. It's the story of an old cowboy like taking up violence one last time to like finally leave peace behind him. And The Dark Knight is like a Heat style crime opera, but it's like a guy in clown paint and a guy in a bat costume. And I was like, okay, so this movie, it's true grit in like the world of Mad Max, like especially with like Furiosa elements. And I was like, okay, I'm down for that. I want to see where they go with it. And yeah, I don't think it quite got there, and we can maybe talk about that as we go on. I'm going to say, I read the comic Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, that this was pretty closely based on, and I'm going to try not to have all my comments just be, well, the comic did this, and that was good, and the movie didn't do it, and that was bad, because adaptation is what it is, and I get where the movie was coming from, but the comic is excellent. If anybody likes it and just wants to check out the character, I do highly recommend.
And that's the most common complaint I've heard is people saying, yeah, it tried to be the comic book and failed horribly at that. So I am interested in giving the comic book a read, knowing that these are two very different animals. Also, we could fill an entire season worth of podcasts with you and me arguing about Furiosa, as we've discovered. Like the first time we both watched it and discussed it, and then when you brought it up Tuesday night afterwards, I brought up the comparison.
Yeah.
Well, we are introduced to the character of, I'm going to have to make a mental note every time here, Cara Zor-El, a.k.a. Supergirl, Superman's cousin. Hard-drinking party girl who's been going to various planets with red suns, specifically so she can get hammered.
And bringing her dog along.
Yeah, like you do. So my first question is, how long did it take you to warm up to Cara, parentheses, or did you?
Most of the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, like once her actual backstory unfolded, especially as somebody who knows like nothing about most of this stuff. Yeah, I thought she was just fucking annoying. Like, God, just shut up or go away or do something. But then like, as the blanks got filled in for me, I was like, oh, okay. Well, at least you have a reason for why you are the way you are.
Yeah. As much as I did like this movie, I recognize it has a lot of flaws, and most of them are in the storytelling, because it's got one of the most paint-by-numbers, save-the-cat moments, like we've talked about on this podcast before. Any moment that is designed specifically to endear you to a character, in this case, it's Save the Kid. Because after we're introduced to Ruthie and we see her parents and her brother get killed, she goes to a bar looking for somebody to help her on her assassination revenge mission. And naturally, being like a 13-year-old girl in a bar gets picked on, so Cara is the one to step in and help her out and defend her. And I was like, okay, hackneyed, yes. By the book, yes. But I get it. They needed something to make you go, okay, so she's not all annoying all the time.
Yeah, I will say I liked her about as much at the end as I did at the beginning, which sounds very negative, but I actually don't mean it that way. I think Millie Alcock does a very nice job of playing like there's like a very hardened kind of surly core or outside, but inside there's like a pain that's driving it all. I think she does a nice job of not making it feel like she's abrasive just because she's unpleasant, but because it's like, okay, there's a wound that this person is covering. So I think she does a nice job, and letting the moments where she's just doing her best to get through like tough situations feel endearing. So I think it's a very good lead performance for what the script wants the character to be, even if that's not my favorite version of what it could be. So yeah, I think I would say, yeah, I was kind of on board with it from the get-go. I like, here's the grizzled person who's got to, like, take the naive, the kid on the again, True Grit, like Rooster Cogburn and Maddie Ross. Like, it's a great dynamic, and I thought she was doing a nice job for being, like, a blonde girl in her early 20s and not, like, a grizzly old Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, that was going to be my point, is we've seen this character arc so many times. Grizzled old man, whether it's Rooster Cogburn or the Punisher or whoever, Dirty Harry, takes in a young girl that he protects and blah, blah, blah. I think it was a nice flip on its head to make this a 20-something-year-old girl instead.
Yeah, it's a young girl and a slightly older girl as opposed to, like, young girl and dad figure.
Right.
It's kind of related to that, I would say. What did y'all think of the relationship between Cara and Ruthie, which is sort of the emotional backbone of the movie, is these two people. Cara's on a quest to save her dog. Ruthie's on a quest to avenge her family. They bond over their trauma and their, like, what feels like a homelessness in the universe. That work for y'all?
By the end of the movie, it had. By the end of the movie, I was digging. I was picking up what they had put down, essentially. It was difficult for a lot of it because you understand Ruthie and you understand what she wants from a character standpoint, but also she could be really fucking annoying sometimes, which I could say about all 13-year-old girls, to be fair. But yeah, by the end of it, I enjoyed their relationship, especially after the big climactic battle and seeing Cara really go to bat for her, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it really just, it's what I assume a big sister, little sister kind of thing would be, since, I didn't grow up with siblings or anything like that. I didn't have that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But, that's sort of how I always imagined it would be, like, oh my God, you're so annoying. Like, shut up and all that kind of stuff.
I admit for me, it didn't really work because I kept waiting for the scene where we actually just get to see them build a dynamic. Like, so much of the movie is just, and here's a scene where this is happening and they've got to do this. Here's a scene where this is happening and they've got to do that. Even for scenes where, like, they're sitting down in a bar or they're sitting on their interplanetary shuttle bus together, it just feels like the next thing is always about to happen. There's no scene where they just are, like, talking like, so, hey, how are you doing with all this? Or, like, the one big scene where we get that, where Cara reveals, like, what happened to her fragment of Krypton that she lived on for a while. We see that all in flashback, and it's a nice scene, but it means that we don't see Ruthie reacting to it or how Cara tells it or what that means to her. So for me, probably there are two things that really, I think, fundamentally break the script for me, and there's some other things I'll pick at, but the two big problems are, one, I feel like they hit the bullet points of where the relationship needs to be. Like, okay, here they don't like each other, but they're getting along. Here they're kind of looking out for each other. Here's where Ruthie gives Cara the pep talk to believe in herself. And here's where Cara stands up and is worthy of that. And there's just not the connective tissue that makes those points into a story. And so, yeah, that was just something that I wish the movie had done better. And yeah, also I think that Ruthie, apart from her quest, there's not really a lot to her. Like, she wants to kill this guy that killed her family, and that's just sort of it. And you don't get a sense of, like, who her family was or what they meant to her or anything like that. Again, trying not to compare too much of, like, to the comic, but like, so much of that story is about, like, the grief that she's feeling and realizing that Cara, as someone who's lost her whole world, feels the same thing, and just the little scenes they have building that. Yeah, I don't need all of that in the movie, but just one or two sequences would have really made it a lot, like, bumped it up a couple of letter grades for me.
There definitely was some stuff they could have cut out to put that in, I think. You know, I think there was definitely some stuff that I just, oh God, so we're still doing this?
Cara beating people up in bars.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I could have done without the second or third times that happened. I agree.
I always thought that this is a thesis I had for Man of Steel as well, but, like, the best way to tell a Superman story is to just make it very centered on the point of view of a normal person. And Ruthie is, an alien, so not normal from human perspectives, but she's otherwise, like, just a fairly ordinary girl who hasn't been out in the world very much. And a story where she's realizing just who Cara is and, like, how incredibly powerful she is, but how that power doesn't really define her. there's a lot to that. In the same way that I think Man of Steel, if they'd made it the story of Lois Lane discovering this like wandering alien and then gradually zeroing in on the Clark Kent that he really is deep down, would have made that movie feel a lot stronger than it ended up being. So, yeah, I don't love how this movie executes Ruthie. Because children actually do get killed in the movie, I should clarify how this movie handles Ruthie as a character. But a version that got a little more inside her head, and we got to meet Cara through her perspective and see, like, okay, here's the hard exterior, and here's the trauma, and yet here's the warmth and hope underneath all that. Again, I would have liked that movie better.
I was trying to wrap my head around this note earlier when I read it, because it seems odd to me to try to center a Superman movie around somebody else and have him almost be like the side character. And I say that because are either of you, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this before I ask it, Spawn fans? The comic book from the 90s.
Aware of
Todd
it.
McFarlane.
Haven't seen the movie, never read the comic.
You definitely don't need to see the movie from 97 unless you just really want to like zone out and see something stupid for a while. But I loved the comic book. It was the definition of 90s, like, look how dark and gritty we are. This is a hellspawn. But for like the last 15 years, Todd McFarlane has been threatening to remake or make another Spawn movie, but he's always pitched it as it's a Spawn movie from the perspective of the two detective characters. Who are like investigating the weird things going on in their city because of Spawn. And I'm like, I hate this idea. If you're make a Max and Twitch movie, then don't call it Spawn. It would drive me insane if Spawn was a side character in his own movie. And I feel the same way about Superman.
I'll emphasize, I don't think that's the only way to make a Superman movie. I just think that would be a neat way to kind of just bring a fresh perspective to this character that's so well known and so exposed in pop culture, to be like, here's just a person who like starts out odd standing next to somebody who can like bench press a jumbo jet and then gets to realize, okay, no, this is who he actually is separate from all that.
Well, you might think the inciting incident of the movie is Ruthie's whole family getting slaughtered, but no. The actual inciting incident of the movie is the villain, Krem of the Yellow Hills, does the most unforgivable sin in a movie that you can do. He shoots Crypto with a poison dart and therefore sets up like the timetable for the rest of the movie. They have 3 days to get this antidote to cure Crypto or he will die. And I knew that there was no way in hell they would kill off Crypto, their cash cow. But it's such an easy but effective thing to do. All of the scenes afterwards of him injured, really, like, I'm such an easy mark for this shit. It pulled on my heartstrings.
And I just noted that, between the poisoned dogs, the alcohol-numbed trauma, and the sex trafficking and murder of children, can you believe this isn't the box office smashing feel-good hit of the summer?
I got to agree with you on that part, because this DC universe needs to find and settle on a tone. And I mean that movie to movie. Obviously, like, Peacemaker is going to be very different than Superman, is going to be different than Creature Commandos. It's okay if each individual project has its own tone, but they need to be consistent. I loved Superman last summer. It's so much fun, and it's colorful and moving, and for the most part, kid-friendly. It's got a goddamn kaiju in it. And then you get the scene where an imprisoned Superman has to watch Lex Luthor execute a man by shooting him in the head right in front of him. And it's like, oh, he's been like the comic bookie of comic book villains all the way up to this point, and now he's just a murderer.
I will say, every Superman movie has that moment where you realize, oh, Lex Luthor, who's usually kind of a hammy, entertaining figure, you realize, oh, he's that kind of bastard. Like whether it's Gene Hackman just casually revealing that he's blowing up New Jersey just because he wants a second missile that Superman can't stop.
I would also blow up New Jersey given the option.
Yeah, I feel like the only reason Superman stopped that missile is because why did he stop that missile? Oh yeah, because the woman who saved his life made him promise.
Oh.
Yeah, or just like in Superman Returns where Kevin Spacey Luthor just stabs Superman with like a kryptonite shard. Like, I don't hate it because it just feels like it is like a reminder of, okay, stakes, but it's still about like how far he's gone in his opposition. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you about the tone. I wouldn't mind if this was like a whole different thing. It's the fact that this character was specifically introduced in the Superman film, and so the logical thing is like, oh, if you like this movie, here's a spinoff. And this movie is so tonally and thematically opposed to everything that Superman was doing that it's very jarring.
And we get enough of like the heaviness. Hey, it isn't all fun and games for Cara. Here's a backstory explaining why, like Cara said, why she is the way she is. That's one thing to have that sprinkled throughout. But the movie opens like, oh, she's hungover and she's listening to pop music and she's playing in space, throwing a ball for crypto. And here's a guy who murders a small girl's family. Okay, well, they're going to go off on an adventure together to get revenge, and they beat up space pirates, and they go to a space bar, and they meet Lobo, and Cara gets sold out by these parents who want to trade her for their child. That makes perfect sense. It's understandable. Oh, Krem just murdered all three of them. He just murdered these parents and their child. What the fuck? Oh, well, that's okay. It's dark, but we're going to get... What do you mean he has a whole harem of sex slaves? Like, the tonal shifts throughout are so strangely plotted.
I also don't want to be like that guy who nitpicks sci-fi world building, because sometimes you just throw like weird alien stuff out for the sake of it. But they're an all-male race, the Brigands, we're told, Krem and his folk. Also, every time they said his name, I kept thinking it was going to be Krem de la Yellow Hills, at least.
Yes.
But yeah, so they're an all-male race, but they need females to reproduce. How does that work? How did they survive before their species encountered other species that had women? Like, how does that, from an evolutionary standpoint, if you're a unisex species, you've got to have some way to reproduce without needing some outside party, right?
Yeah, I didn't see it as necessary. Even though they might have said, it's a race of to me, it's just this is what they've become.
All their women have been killed off or died throughout the centuries.
Yeah, well, it's just like, we just need you for breeding, and we're just going to lock you back up in the, kind of like in Bone Tomahawk.
Right. The women in Supergirl fare considerably better than the women in Bone Tomahawk.
Yeah, a little bit, anyway.
Yeah.
I also, you mentioned the backstory of Cara that we get, where we see her family's perspective, because she and her family and the people around her were on this chunk of Krypton that got blown into space when the planet exploded, but got preserved under a force field that her father developed. And one of the things that was a little controversial in the James Gunn Superman was the reveal that Jor-El sent young Kal-El to Earth, not just to survive and to grow up and, dare say, protect the population. He wanted him to enslave Earth. He left him a message specifically saying, conquer this planet in the name of Krypton, and get a harem of women, and just to carry on the Kryptonian breeding. Which, wow, yeah, I guess the forced breeding is becoming a weird thing in the Gunn DC universe. And a lot of people were kind of that's obviously a shake up on Superman's usual mythology. Some people didn't love it as a metaphor, or how it impacts the metaphor of Superman as the immigrant. Makes it seem like, oh, the place he came from is bad and the place he came to is good, and that's not really a great immigration story if you like that metaphor for Superman. But this movie affirms that. Like, it's clear that, yes, that's what Jor-El was doing and everybody knew it. But all the other Kryptonians treat it as like this weird side project. They're like, oh, that's Jor-El with his nutty plan to send his baby to conquer another planet. And they'll just kind of roll their eyes and then move on with their own thing. Like, people don't approve of it, but also nobody's really treating it as noteworthy. Also weird that when Kara's little section of Krypton is dying of radiation poisoning and her dad builds her a rocket to send her to Earth, he's like, you'll go there and you'll use your power to protect. And he doesn't mention, unless your cousin's already conquered it, then that's going to be kind of awkward. Because as far as he knows, Kal-El has already enslaved the planet by the time she gets there. Just a weird, I don't know. I thought it was funny that they couldn't not acknowledge it, but the way they fit it in was kind of funny to me.
Yes,
I don't know why this just popped in my head. Why is Superman older than her then? Oh, wait, because he was sent to Earth when everything exploded and she, okay, never mind. Had to work that out in my head.
Yeah, no, that was my big question is how are they going to handle that? Because if I'm remembering my comic lore, they were launched at roughly the same time, right? Aren't they usually the same age in the comics?
So Supergirl's origin has been rewritten a bunch in different continuities. Like DC's reset their own continuity like 3 or 4 times, but even within those separate things, there have been like a bunch of different backstories. I think the one that was consistent for the longest is that Supergirl was actually older than him. She was born first. They got sent off at the same time, but Kal-El, one of them got stuck in a wormhole, so Kal-El technically arrived first. So he gets there, grows up, and by the time she arrives, he's already grown up into Superman. So she was born sooner, but she's kind of out of the time stream for a while. I don't know if that's where it is now, but yeah, that's usually their explanation for it.
Huh.
Well, in one of the biggest wins for comic book nerds ever, right up there next to Zack Snyder's Justice League, a popular fan casting for the last decade or so finally got to come true. Fans got to see Jason Momoa as Lobo, and he had the most fun of anybody in this movie.
And I had the most fun watching him.
Yeah, it's a good time, and I love that when people were like, isn't it weird that you were Aquaman and now you're playing Lobo? I think Momoa verbally shrugged in every interview. He was just like, I don't care.
Right.
Both roles seem like a lot of fun.
Yeah, because he was clearly having fun as Aquaman, too.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about the character other than he was beloved by DC comic fans and that his general appearance, he's got his own swears, he's always smoking cigars. And he was so good in the little bit that we got to see him.
So the whole thing of Lobo is that, and I forget how much he was a parody when he started out, but he became the parody of the Judge Dredd style, super gritty metal sci-fi thing where everybody's on a motorcycle and all your costumes are covered in spikes.
Oh, so all of the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah, and again, I'm not sure how much of a parody he was when he began, but by the mid-90s, he was very much a tongue-in-cheek character. I remember on the Superman animated series that I watched as a kid in the early 90s, he was voiced by Brad Garrett. He gets the immortal line when he talks about being the last of his kind, too. He's like, oh, yeah, blew up my planet for a high school science project. Gave myself an A.
It's wild to me how many parody characters have gone on to be more popular than the thing they parodied, because we got Lobo and then we got Deadpool as well, who was a parody of Deathstroke. But
I just kind of noted that the movie does pick up every time Lobo's on screen, even though he doesn't really contribute that much to the plot because he's just one of the few characters who seems like he's encountered joy in his life. He just likes what he's doing and, gets a big thrill out of just throwing guys around and smashing into things with his motorcycle. And it's that fun energy that I thought was going to be a much bigger part of the movie. And yeah, it's great when he shows up there.
Yeah, now I understand, Robert, that Krem in the comic books gets a lot more of a backstory or a lot more of a personality than he gets in the movie. Is that correct?
So in the comics, it's kind of similar to True Grit. He's like a guy who shows up on the farm and he actually only kills Ruthie's dad. She's got some older brothers and a mom who are all still alive. But he works for the king of the place where they live. His job was to basically sneak out or ferret out spies and disloyalists. Ruthie's father was loyal, but because he reacted badly to the test that Krem gave him, Krem just decided to kill him anyway. It was just kind of a pointless, I was in a bad mood, so I killed him moment. And then he goes off on his own, and when he realizes Supergirl is chasing him, he joins up with the Brigands, who are this other existing faction, because he wants a big group of bad guys to protect him from this ticked-off Kryptonian. So I wouldn't say he gets more backstory, but he's more of a pragmatic bastard than just he perpetuates a bunch of mass murders and he does a bunch of awful stuff, but it's not like that was his whole thing to begin with.
Gotcha. I've seen people complain about how he's just a card-carrying villain throughout the movie, and to me, I'm perfectly fine with it. Sometimes bad guys are bad guys. I think it was honestly one of the best things about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was just how fucking evil the High Evolutionary was, which made it so satisfying to watch him get his shit rocked at the end of the movie. And you noted down below, a lot of comparison has been made to some of the like Phase 2 Marvel villains when they didn't really know what to do with them. I like that this guy is just a piece of shit. He's just a murdering bastard and shows no remorse for it and exists to drive the plot along because, let's be honest, there are murdering evil bastards out there and not all of them are going to have a sympathetic backstory.
I don't necessarily need or want them to. You know, I'm perfectly happy to just hate somebody, villain.
I thought you were just going to stop at, I'm perfectly fine to just hate.
I almost did, and then I was like, oh, I should probably get more into that.
But on the other hand, as Robert put,
I just said Matthias Skonarts. I'm probably saying his last name wrong. But he joins Christopher Eccleston, Lee Pace, and Mads Mikkelsen on the long list of European actors who are just happy to cash a paycheck and let the makeup do 90% of the work. Because I remember he was in, he's been in a lot of like Netflix stuff. I think he was in The Old Guard. He was in Far From the Madding Crowd, a period drama with Carey Mulligan that I really liked. So he's a good actor and he's been in some great stuff. But yeah, this is just a role where he just has like weird like face jewelry and he breathes heavily at everybody.
Yeah, and you could have also added Christian Bale as Gore the God Butcher from Thor Love and Thunder in there as well. But I think the thing is, no offense to Matthias Schoenaerts, I have not seen either of the things you named. I didn't know who this guy was. The big question surrounding people like Christopher Eccleston and Lee Pace, Mads Mikkelsen, and Christian Bale is, why do you cast these guys? Why do you spend the money if you're not going to give them anything to fucking do? Especially when you don't even like get to see what they look like. They're so buried under this makeup. Yeah, I think it's a slightly different scenario, but again, like card-carrying villain exists to drive the plot and get killed.
Yeah, and for the role he plays in the script, that actually didn't bother me too much. I think it's still weird to just have this constant threat of sexual violence hanging over his every interaction with Ruthie, who's, I don't know how the actress is, but the character is like 13 or 14. So it's just, again, it's a weird level of danger that you're just not used to in a PG-13 summer blockbuster. And I'm not sure the movie earns what it's trying to do with that, but.
You don't want a villain who's basically Harvey Weinstein?
Oh, we already got that in Return of the King. Y'all don't know? Do you remember that like that kind of pale orc that like leads the attack on Minas Tirith?
Oh my God, Mogroth?
Reportedly, that monster design was influenced by Weinstein.
Holy fuck!
I think there's another like supporting orc that's even closer. That's got like when you see a side by side picture, you're like, oh no, that's definitely meant to be him.
Wow. Did not know that. As far back as the early 2000s, people were talking about what a piece of shit Harvey Weinstein was. God, we're not going to go there. We won't turn it into that kind of podcast.
Nope.
From the beginning of Superman 2025, the very first time we see him, it's in costume. We see the bright blue and red. I hate the traffic on this street sometimes. These fucking assholes in their big trucks. Sorry about that, listeners. But right off the bat in Superman, we saw him in his costume. And one of the things that I enjoyed about this movie is we see Cara's early on shoved into her backpack. I think it's one of the first shots that we get during that opening montage. But then after shooting Crypto, Krem steals her ship and flies it away. So she's in like a t-shirt and jeans and a trench coat for the majority of the movie. So when we finally do get that third act reveal of her floating in her full costume, I just got the big goofiest grin on my face because it was such a great reveal. And I think saving it for that as opposed to giving it to us up front the way that Superman did, great choice. How did you guys feel about that?
I agree. You know, it to me, it made it meaningful because by that point, you know, you had her backstory and like you understood what the costume symbolizes. Mm-hmm. And also, you know, you have like, you know, her parents telling her, you know, be good. Like you don't have to, you know, I wish I could remember the things. You
right. don't have to be nice, but be good.
Yes. And I don't know. I liked it as well.
Well, and I loved the brief flashback we got to her talking to Superman where he presents it to her and he says, yeah, I know the colors are kind of loud, but it's so that people know we're good. I loved that line. I loved the basis for the costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say to the extent that this movie has a good arc for Cara. It's that, we see that she's getting like voice messages from her cousin that she's just kind of like ignoring, and she's, when she talks to him, she just kind of is terse and moves on quickly. She's running away from Earth. She's running away from the life that he thinks she can have there. And her accepting, like, I can be a hero. I can be, the moment where she flies out of the mist or the smoky clouds or whatever in the full super attire. It's a nice moment.
All right. Well, one of the most controversial things to come out of this movie wasn't really any of the script decisions. It was one particular needle drop, which everyone who's seen a James Gunn movie knows how much he loves. But the question going up into this movie was, how much of a James Gunn influence is this really going to have, considering he's producing it, but Craig Gillespie is directing it?
I didn't see Cruella, which was the last movie that Craig Gillespie did, because those Disney live-action remakes are poison and I spit on them. But
Fair.
I understand Cruella was also very big on needle drop, so it seems like everybody, like you said, the question of how much of a Gunn influence, this seems like something Gillespie might have been happy to bring on his own, too.
I gotcha. Well, people either love it or hate it, but it's the cover of Jimmy Eat World's The Middle that plays over the climax of the film, the big climactic fight. Cara, we know that you don't hear music. That was one of the things that we discovered during Lost, is you were like, what background music? Did this song, did this needle drop, no pun intended, even move the needle for you?
I mean, I heard it. I did actually do hear them like in big movies.
Oh, okay.
It's mostly really loud and I can't not hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it was kind of like the part of the focal whatever.
It didn't, yeah. It was just there.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, that's the soundtrack.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Robert.
I'm going to say no. After Supergirl flies up in the costume, very little else about the big action climax worked for me. It's doing that kind of like spin around, stitch together, one take CGI action thing that's become such a huge part of this kind of movie, and I feel like I've sort of calloused to it now. But even when because James Gunn loves those, and at least he's usually still doing like a lot of beats in comedy, like the whole scene with Mr. Terrific and Superman where Lois Lane's hiding inside a force field while Mr. Terrific and his T-spheres are taking out all of Luthor's guards. As you look around, you see like, okay, there's funny stuff. Here's a guy trying to grab one and getting tased. Here's Mr. Terrific just casually punching a guy. Here's and this was just like, rubber body bounce off other rubber body, Lobo laughing. It just, not very little about that sequence worked for me. You've got this whole thing where they're like barges or something dangling off the main ship for the brigands, and so Ruthie and Clem both wind up like swinging from like suspended chains at different points, and I was just thinking like, imagine what somebody like James Cameron or George Miller, like somebody with just like a real sense for action scenes, could have done with like all these levels and motions. And that is not what Gillespie can do.
I gotcha. Me personally, I read about this. I knew people talked about it. I avoided listening to it because I wanted to judge it with fresh ears. And it's a different enough cover that it takes the lyrics starting to understand what it's a cover of. And once I figured that out, it made my dumb millennial heart happy as somebody who loves that song and loves Jimmy Eat World. So my initial reaction once I figured it out was like, this is a choice. But as the sequence went on, I think the smartest thing about it, and I agree with you, Robert, it gets old. It gets paint by numbers after a while. Especially my biggest complaint, we're going to take it all the way back to 2017. I thought Wonder Woman was like 2/3 of a great movie until we get to the big action set piece where it's just a huge CGI fight between her and Ares, which didn't ruin the movie for me. I still enjoy it, but it was so fucking unnecessary.
You didn't love having David Thewlis's head like digitally pasted onto Macho Man Randy Savage's body or whatever?
With his big dumb fucking mustache. Kara, did you ever see Wonder Woman?
I think so, but I've blocked it out.
Yeah, probably for the best. I agree with you, but the smartest thing this sequence did was framing it from Ruthie's perspective as she is turning around and watching this chaos ensue around her. And so we get to see Cara leave frame and then come back in. There's a moment where she kicks a guy, hits the ground, and then stops a spear from hitting Ruthie. I thought it was a very intentional way of framing this to make it not quite as cookie cutter as it otherwise could have been. Yeah, if the camera had been like following Cara instead as she just bounces from place to place, hitting guy to guy, probably would have felt differently. But I like the Ruthie of it all for this scene. And I love the cover. I went home and I listened to it by itself outside the context of the movie, and it's just a really great cover.
Yeah, as a song, I didn't hate it. It didn't do anything for me in terms of the scene.
All right, well, let's talk about another big controversy to come out of this movie. It does the whole classic, somebody's out for revenge, you can't kill them, it's not going to make things different for you, it's going to make them worse, you're going to regret it, you're going to think about it the rest of your life. There's a popular joke involving the Punisher. I have no idea if this actually if this is a meme or if it came out of an actual comic book, but somebody actually tells again, might be a meme, the Punisher, every time you kill a killer, there's the same number of killers in the world. And he's like, well, that's why I kill a whole bunch of killers. But yeah, it sets it up to do the same thing where Cara stops Ruthie from being the one to execute Krem, talks her down from the ledge successfully, and then tells her to walk away and not look back. And once Ruthie's like out of distance, Cara is the one to execute Krem. Which, after the first Superman made a big deal out of Clark will try to save life at all costs. He tried to save the kaiju that was wrecking the city and was disappointed when the Justice Gang killed it. Watching Cara execute this guy is kind of jarring. I think it makes sense in the context of like, yeah, she spared this 13-year-old girl from committing an atrocity that might stick with her the rest of her life, but this guy still needed to fucking die. Thoughts?
Cara, I'll let you go first. 'Cause I definitely have my thoughts.
Oh, I'm sure you do. I agree with you. Like, I don't think he needed to survive. I think absolutely he had to die. I don't have a lot of the background that probably most people do, I think, with like, Superman and all this whole comic book universe, so I can just see things for just, this is what I've been given. And yes, I think it had to happen. I think I would have been more upset if it hadn't.
Robert, what were your thoughts?
Okay, so obviously first thing, this is a fictional world and like these are 3 aliens we're all talking about here. So whatever my thoughts about like just executing people in the real world, thoughts about due process and not applying here. Just within the context of Superman and the associated characters, I always thought that like Superman especially is about like, what does it mean to be a hero? To be someone who like, you've got all this power, you've got the will to do good. What does that mean? How does that apply? And like the best Superman stories wrestle with that, like taking his power and his goodness both for granted, you then start from there. And what I really liked about the Gunn movie last summer is that after a decade of Snyderverse, like a broody kind of uncertain Superman, here you have a guy who is just unabashedly, he loves helping people. He sees the world as good. He believes there's hope for everybody. Even Lex Luthor, can be turned around if you believe enough. That doesn't mean you don't stop bad guys. It doesn't mean you don't, step in when you have to. But Superman has this way of looking at the world, and the movie allows that he might be right. Like other people kind of roll their eyes and have a more cynical view of things, and they may not be wrong to, but we're not treated like, oh, Superman's this idiot and just glad everybody else sees things more clearly. It was very jarring for me to see this movie have Cara affirmatively be like, yeah, my husband sees the good in people, but I see how things really are. And for this movie's thesis of what it is to be a hero come down to, well, a hero is someone who kills people so the nice folks don't have to. And you mentioned the Punisher. Like there are plenty of comic book characters and stories that have taken that ethos and can do a lot of interesting stuff with it. I don't like it for a character wearing that S shield. It feels like a rejection of what I really thought was heartening and beautiful about guns Superman, and then makes it really just seem like this dumb thing that Clark is enough of a chump to believe in. And yeah, just the idea that like sometimes a hero's just got to kill a helpless dude lying on the ground, and to have that be like her arc of what she comes to, it did not work for me. And again, recognizing that Krim is a bastard and just expressing no sympathy for people in the real world who do anything like that. Yeah, for me, it just felt like it was supposed to be like, she's still a gritty badass who will do the hard thing. And I'm just like, I don't think that's what a Superman, Supergirl, Superboy, like, I don't think that's what this character needs, because with all that power, the restraint and the things that they choose not to do are what's defining. And it's just like, so is she going to come back to Earth and just kill people there? Because, you know, it's not like we don't have people who do these things on Earth as well. I don't know, and that kind of gets into how, yeah, I didn't like it, and it just, it made it feel like flat, because again, it makes it feel like she's just sparing Ruthie's delicate little fifis instead of actually like making any statement about what it means to let go of a need for revenge or to take it, but in a way that's about more than just putting more pain in the world.
Counterpoint, he shot Crypto.
Well, I mean, that honestly was where I was going to go. I mean, you know, if you shoot my dog, no, I think you die.
We watched 4 John Wick movies and a spinoff with that premise. No, I understand what you're saying, especially in regards to, that was one of the things that a lot of people hated about Man of Steel back in 2013, is that he kills Zod at the end of it.
Well, what was always funny about Man of Steel is that everybody's like, well, Superman doesn't do that. And I'm like, well, this Superman does. We haven't seen, like, I watched that whole Zack Snyder movie. There's no scene where that Superman expresses any problem with killing people.
Right.
Like, we're supposed to react a certain way because we know how Superman, the pop culture icon, reacts. But, like, in the in the Zack Snyder script, there's nothing to build that up. So it's like, I don't like that version of Superman, but okay, this is who he is in this movie. So let's see where they go with that.
I'm sure we could turn this into a whole sociological debate about the ethics of it all, but it's one of the things that people always joke about with Batman. Much like Superman, Batman has a no-killing rule under any circumstances. But people often point out, but Batman will break your fucking spine. He'll throw you off a roof and you'll be paralyzed for the rest of your life and you wish you're dead. He'll break every bone in your body and knock every tooth out of your mouth. So is it really like any less capital punishment if you're still alive but a vegetable afterwards? And Batman's methods are notorious for letting criminals, you know, become repeat offenders. They're always breaking out of Arkham. They're always doing the thing again. The Joker, most famously. So the alternative here is Cara doesn't execute him, but she arrests him. She throws him into a space jail. He escapes again and murders more people. It's a gray area that isn't the sort of thing that, like, you know, 3 nerds in a podcast are going to solve.
And it's the eternal problem that, like, the Joker will always survive because the Joker is a very popular comic book villain. And, like, he will always escape to do more crimes because you want to tell more stories with him. So it's challenging to be like, well, the ethics of Batman, when there's this whole meta thing hanging over it that's like, well, it doesn't matter if we think he should or shouldn't kill the Joker. They're not going to stop telling stories with the Joker.
Right.
Sort of like why you can't kill Crypto.
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so, with other characters, I wouldn't necessarily mind this. It's also just interesting to me that over the last, like, 20-odd years since the dawn of the MCU, a no-kill rule has been a pretty rare thing in superhero movies. Like, the only heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who have any kind of no-killing rule are, I think, Daredevil and Spider-Man. Cap's a soldier, Tony's blown up terrorist, no problem. Hawkeye and Black Widow are assassin. Like, all the Avengers have body counts. Like, that's not at all something that those movies deal with. And again, in the James Gunn universe, you have Superman kills, and Ben Affleck's Batman has no problem blowing people up left and right. So it's weird to talk about it as like this cornerstone of superhero storytelling, but it hasn't been a thing outside of like some comic books for a while now.
I didn't even know it was a thing. I'll be honest. I didn't know that there was a no, not a rule, but like a no-kill thing. I had no idea.
It's often the cornerstone of a lot of characters. Like Robert just said for Daredevil, his struggle not to just kill criminals, especially when you team him up with somebody like the Punisher, who will, is a big source of drama, both in the original run and in Born Again. That was basically the plot of the second season of Born Again, is maybe somebody should just kill this guy. So it makes for an interesting fight scene. Again, like when you team him up with the Punisher and he has to fight bad guys while stopping Frank from murdering them at the same time. So he's pulling double duty. You get a lot of mileage out of that.
Yeah.
I appreciated in the end of this that, as weird as it may sound, Cara definitively decides to take action here. What I thought this ending was going to be, especially when Ruthie comes up and hugs her while crying, I thought they were going to do the cop-out ending where, Krem had a secret knife on him and he's going to draw it and throw it or rush them, and one of them is going to have to kill him, and you took the choice out of their hands. It was self-defense.
Or he dives at them, they step out of the way, and he lands on the sword.
Yeah, that too. Which, again, we're talking paint by numbers here, would have felt so hackneyed to me. Is it weird watching her just stab a guy? Yes, it is, and maybe it should be, but she committed, and I support women's rights and women's wrongs. But then after this, I don't think anybody involved in the making of this movie knew how to end the fucking thing. The end of Superman 2025 is so good and so strong that I was expecting the same sort of emotional reaction here at the end. But like Ruthie and Cara try to say goodbye, and it's really awkward because neither one of them want to. And then they end up going off to go to one more bar together, which Cara takes a 13-year-old girl to a bar, I guess.
Hey, it's space. We can...
Yeah. They don't card.
No.
And then she goes back to Clark's apartment, and it's really awkward between them. And they end the movie on a joke because Crypto's being Crypto. And the last line of the movie is Clark being like, Crypto's getting into the chocolate. Don't eat that. Stop that. End of the movie. And I was like, huh.
One piece of trivia that made so much sense retroactively, I'm amazed I didn't realize it at the time. That was supposed to be a mid-credit scene initially, the scene in Clark's apartment, but they decided since it wrapped up the runner of their relationship to just move it into the end of the movie proper.
We could have just seen them hug. After all the animosity between them, where Cara is so standoffish and Clark clearly wants there to be a relationship between them, like a familial cousin, brother, sister kind of thing between them. To just have seen them hug and Cara to finally get some sort of resolution, some feeling of satisfaction of okay, I have a family and am loved and whatnot, would have been so much stronger of an ending than Crypto got into the chocolate. It was such a strange choice to me. And then Robert, you had the last one here.
Yeah, this is just a general note, but a whole thing in this movie is that different planets have different suns. So if Cara goes to a red sun planet, her powers will slowly drain down, which is how she's able to get drunk, but she's also vulnerable to being punched and stabbed in ways that she wouldn't if she's on a planet with a yellow sun, where her powers charge back up and she's at full superpower. And then at one point they wind up on a planet with a green sun, and she's basically just immediately dying from radiation exposure as soon as she's out there. And again, not making this whole thing with the comic, visually the comic is beautiful. It's very much bright colors and alien landscapes. It's just gorgeously visually designed. And I was just really disappointed that pretty much all the action scenes set into this kind of muddy brown or dark gray thing instead of really playing with light works differently on this planet. Kind of similar to, Cara, did you see Dune 2?
No.
David, you saw that one, right?
Yeah.
You know the where they get to the planet of the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the evil family's name.
The Harkonnens.
Harkonnens, there we go. And it's basically the whole planet is negative exposure. It's the whites are super washed out and the black. So it looks like you're looking at a photo negative planet almost for how harshly it's lit.
Ooh.
And it's just a really cool thing to be different sun just gives us this atmosphere. And not in this movie. You just have kind of a green tint sometimes and a red tint sometimes. And then other times it looks like normal sun. And there's just not much they do with that, which felt really disappointing.
Yeah, it doesn't help that a big chunk of the plot of the movie takes place on a planet that is essentially, what if garbage was a planet?
Yeah.
The first place that they really confront the brigands is just like, they make a point like, oh yeah, this planet went to hell and now only like the worst of the worst go to live there. So overall, I liked it, but it's definitely a step down from Superman. And if we're talking the universe so far as a whole, if we're including Peacemaker and Creature Commandos, it's at the bottom of the list for me. I still really liked it. And then we're in a weird situation I talked about during Disclosure Day. I walked out of that movie and I was like, it was fine. And then the more I talked to Katie about it and went through our notes, I was like, actually, it wasn't fine. I hated it. The more I thought about this movie and told Katie a little bit about it and wrote the notes, I was like, I really liked this. It's the exact opposite takeaway that I had from Disclosure Day. I ended up liking it more the more I thought about it. And Robert, I'm sorry that wasn't the experience here for you. It's a weird one for us to go out on since this is going to be our last one for a couple of months.
The positive that I'm choosing to see here is that Gunn indicated that he wanted his DC universe to be more creator driven. So like you have writers and directors who get to come up with their own visions and not have the sort of like uniform baseline competence that was sort of the hallmark of the MCU in the run up to Infinity War and then very much after, where everything kind of looks the same and all the like set pieces look like they're directed interchangeably. So the fact that this movie can be bad, I actually take as a hope to be like, okay, but that means another director can bring their idea and be good. Like the fact that there are misses means there's also allowance for bigger swings. So that's the positivity I'm taking from it.
I like that. You're always one to put a positive spin on things.
Rooting for Clayface.
Yes, I am too. Kara, have you seen the trailer for Clayface?
Nope. Don't even know what that is.
As soon as we're done here, I'm showing you the trailer for this movie so that you can get excited for it too.
Awesome.
And again, like this could be, we could just pivot to doing a show about trailers. Robert, after the wee baby Bradford is born, you can just record your thoughts on a movie trailer and email it to me and I'll loop it into an episode.
We need to do like our top 10 trailers, like one episode where we just look back over 20 years and are just like, oh, this one.
Oh, just 20? Because I think the trailer for Return of the King, the first one that was released, is one of the best movie trailers of all time.
Wow,
You guys
20 years ago,
movie trailers.
Huh?
Jesus.
What'd you say, Karen?
How do you remember movie trailers?
Well, they're
Because
good.
I'm a fucking nerd.
I know.
Sometimes I just go back and watch old movie trailers. The teaser trailer for Superman that came out in December of 2024 is one of the best trailers I've ever seen. And watching that, like, I legitimately cried when I heard the remix of the classic John Williams Superman theme. As soon as that first chord hit, I was like, I'm in. I'm fucking in. I think James Gunn did it. I'm here for it. I love movie trailers. I really do.
Every trailer for Sin City when I was a kid, I would just watch over and over again.
Yes.
Because that was just...
Yes.
I never read the comic, had no idea what it was about, and I was just like, this is the most insane looking thing ever, but I just want to watch this 2-minute clip over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
See, I think this is it's not symptomatic, but this explains a lot because, for me, growing up, trailers were, you saw them on TV, but then you also saw them like when you went to the movies or when you went to Blockbuster and rented a VHS or eventually a DVD. But like there was not access. You couldn't rewatch unless you rewatched them from your VHS. And like it's just dawned on me that's, generational, I guess.
Well, way back in 2002, I don't remember what movie they attached it to, but it was a huge deal that the trailer for Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones was going to air on network TV first during a commercial break on a TV movie. And it was like, okay, at 7:05 during this commercial break, and I recorded it on a VHS tape so I could watch it again later. Attack of the Clones is
Awful.
unobjectively one of the worst movies ever made in human history. But by God, I watched that trailer a whole bunch.
When they're ramping up the Duel of the Fates over the battle scenes, oh my gosh,
And you
looks
see,
so cool.
for the first time, dozens of Jedi on screen, all with their lightsabers out, and about to have this huge battle. Yeah, to 14, 15-year-old me, that was the greatest thing of all time. then I actually, well, even, I was still young when I saw the movie, so I still thought it was great. It wasn't until I got a little older that I was like, wow, this is bad.
See, what was interesting is that, like, I was getting into this, like, into the pre-YouTube days where you had to either go to, like, the movie's official site, or there were some places like movietrailers.net where you could just search and pull them up. And now you can look on YouTube and just find, like, 6 trailers. Now the worst part is it's all cluttered up with, like, AI, quote-unquote, fan-made trailers. So
I hate that.
You have to get, like, 45 seconds in before you're sure if you're looking at a real thing or not.
This is going to be the last thing I have to say about trailers. What are these idiots getting out of this? These people who make these fake trailers and then try to pass them off as the real thing. I'm always like, what? Why? Why, you dillhole? Anyway, that is going to wrap up Long Walk Talks for a little bit because Robert's got some things going on that supersede this podcast.
Super.
Hey.
Yes, my wife will be giving birth to our son.
Any day now?
Sometime within the next 2 weeks. We will see.
So, again, any day now.
So she has asked me to take at least a week off from the podcast. Well, okay, she asked for a little more, but I'm hoping there's room to negotiate that down.
And hey, if we come up with something again, this Long Walk Talks Lost was a spinoff of a show. Maybe we'll do something else where you can just send me a pre-recorded message and I'll loop it in. But anyway, we'll figure that out. I'm very excited for the two of you. So you got that going on. We're just going to include that as the thing that's giving you joy.
Well, I want to put one other thing in.
Oh,
I
that's
told
right.
You about, so David and I got to the theater before Cara, and I was telling him about the thing I was going to say because I know you will love it. If you have not heard of this, I am so happy that I get to tell you about it while we're recording. Have you ever heard of The Root Trees Are Dead?
No.
There could not be a game that sounds more perfectly calibrated for you. It is a genealogy sim.
Oh, hell.
You are given a family tree of this, like, 5-generation family that has owned a company, and your job is to, like, take because you've got, so-and-so were married, had 3 kids, they were married.
Uh-huh.
You've got the tree, the branches and all that, but it's just blank pictures, and you've got to get, for every blood descendant of the family's top patriarch, you've got to get their picture, their name, and their occupation. And to do this, the game is set in like the late 90s, so you've got like an old style web search engine. You can go to a library site, and if you know the name and exact title of a book within the game, you can look that up and get information from there. And you get access to like newspapers and periodicals, so you can keyword search there. And this is how you get like pictures, articles, music clips, and you use that to build up. And the game is similar to like Return to the Obra Dinn. It tells you when you've gotten 3 of them correct, they lock in, and you process eliminate your way through. I found this on Sunday, and I just like binged for like 8 hours. I was just digging into this. It's available for free as a browser game, but it's free because it was created with AI. They just didn't have like much of a budget, so all the photos and stuff. They released a version of it on Steam that's remastered, has voice acting, and they actually had human-created art for all that stuff because they actually had a budget at that point. So yeah, The Root Trees Are Dead.
Well, writing that down.
Yes.
Yes, and pay for it. Don't support AI.
Oh, God, yeah.
But no, it is a fun game. It brought me a lot of joy, and almost as much as knowing how I was going to get to tell you about it.
Yeah, as soon as he started describing this to me, I was like, well, that's the most Cara thing I've ever heard it. What the fuck? I was trying to combine Cara coded and Cara, whatever.
Yeah.
Cara
yeah.
coded.
I mean, the only other thing, that would come close is a game where you travel around to historic places and lick them.
Yeah.
There's got to be a mod for the Assassin's Creed game that lets you lick things.
Oh, somebody needs to get on that.
Yes.
I'll buy that.
For the listeners who don't know, Cara loves to lick history. I won't quite call it a fetish, but
No.
maybe a kink. I don't know. So,
Hobby.
Cara, what's bringing you joy right now?
So I'm listening to a new author while I bide my time before our 2 new releases later this year. So interestingly, it has taken me a number of hours into the book before I'm like, oh, okay, you're not just a pain in the ass. I really did not care for the main character. She was weak.
So just like Supergirl then.
Yeah, but like now, like I've kind of got a little bit of her backstory, and I'm like, oh, okay. So yes.
Very nice. The 2 books that Cara I can say that properly now instead of Cara. The two books that Cara is referring to belong to two of like the nerd rabbit holes we've gone down. In September, I think it is, we're getting Other Worlds Than These, which is supposed to be like the cap off to Stephen King's Dark Tower saga.
Well, and the Talisman.
And the Talisman saga as well. And then in November, we're getting a novel of, There Are No Giant Crabs in This Novel, a novel of giant crabs, which is the 5th book in the John Dies at the End series.
I listened to the audiobook of the first one, really loved it, and yeah, I need to keep going with
Oh
those.
God, please do.
You do, because this book is full of spiders is like one of my top 5 favorite books. It's the best one in the series. The other 2 after it are also really good, but yeah, Spiders is fantastic. Still on that Twin Peaks train, watching an episode every few nights whenever Katie and I are both home at the same time, which is rare these days. I mean, it's rare in general. So yeah, still on that train. I got a long way to go from what I understand. We're in the middle of season 2. We have Fire Walk with Me, and we've got The Return to watch. So that'll be a while. In the meantime, if you want to follow me online, you can do that on Instagram at dbhensley. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on this network, that keep meaning to take that out. There are still no other shows on this network. Please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you are listening on.